On the morning of September 10th, 2001, the reunion attendees all met at the Loring Air Force Base NCO Club. The 3080th Aviation Depot Group reunion attendees then boarded a bus for the tour of the remains of the Caribou Air Force Station. The first stop of the tour was the former location of where the main gate of the Caribou Air Force Station used to stand. The attendees tried to envision what the site used to look like, as the site no longer existed as it had in 1962. There was a lot of confusion, and some of the attendees remarked how they didn't understand where the gate was or what it used to look like because it had been such a long time since they had been there. Some photos were shown to the group which helped to illustrate where the gate was and how it used to look. The second stop on the bus tour was the quadrangle, or administrative area. Once again, the attendees had to envision what the site used to look like, as none of the buildings stood and had been long since demolished, dismantled, and moved. Some photos were shown to the group, and some questions were asked about where certain buildings had been and the tunnels that ran underneath them. The third stop on the bus tour of the Caribou Air Force Station was building number 216, known as Plant 1. Building 216, known as Plant 1, was the original atomic bomb plant. This reinforced concrete arch structure had several bays: electrical bay, mechanical bay, test bay, and this is where the weapons were disassembled, inspected, parts were replaced if necessary, reassembled, and this is where most of the people who worked on the weapons worked out of during the early years of Caribou Air Force Station. As you can see in the video, there was a lot of interest in Building 216, Plant 1. Many participants in the reunion made several comments about working in the building and showing the building to their wives to be able to talk about things that they were unable to talk about for so many years. And a lot of time was spent at this particular building. When Caribou Air Force Station was in operation from 1952 to 1962, if there was a power failure, local power had been cut for whatever reason, they couldn't simply just go home and wait till the power came back on. No, the mission was too critical, had to be operational 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So in Building 216, Plant 1, there were two very large diesel-powered generators. These were kept in top condition at all times because if there was a commercial power failure, these two generators would turn on and they would power the entire station until commercial power could be restored. Our next stop on the bus tour was the base spares area. As you can see on this map, the area was located at the far left side of the Caribou Air Force Station. This was also the area where the C building, shown on the left, and the AEC Records Office, shown on the right, had been. Both structures had been demolished a few years before the reunion took place in September 2001. A considerable amount of time was spent in the base spares area, and although the buildings no longer remained on the site, I took the time to explain just how critical the C building was to the mission of Caribou Air Force Station. I provided details on the layout of the sea structure, the 2 laboratory rooms, the source pits that contain the polonium neutron emitting initiators, and how the contents of the nuclear capsules were disassembled, inspected, cleaned, and reassembled. In addition, I provided detail on the building that was specifically built to store the records of the Atomic Energy Commission on the site. This building was made entirely of concrete and metal. It was completely indestructible and would not be destroyed by fire. The next stop on the tour was the area where all nuclear weapons were stored. The area shown in the photo was the area between Plant 1 and Plant 2. The tour bus then passed the blast wall, which had been constructed between Plants 1 and Plant 2. Building 232, Plant 2, was specifically designed and built for the disassembly, repair, assembly, and testing of the thermonuclear hydrogen weapon. Continuing on the bus tour, we stopped at several weapons storage facilities. These were earth-covered, reinforced concrete structures with an arched roof and were commonly known as igloos. There were 3 types of storage igloos built at Caribou Air Force Station. Three types of storage igloos built at Caribou Air Force Station were Type 1, which is the original igloo consisting of a single open bay. These were built to store the atomic bombs. Type 2, consisting of a rear open bay and a front room or vestibule. These were built for the thermonuclear hydrogen bomb. And Type 6, a much smaller igloo consisting of a rear vault with a safe door and a front room which was a work area. Our next stop on the bus tour of Caribou Air Force Station was building number 260, known as the A building. The A building was a reinforced concrete structure. Inside were 4 large vaults with bank vault doors. There was also a large bank vault door at the entrance to the hallway leading to the 4 interior vaults. Inside each vault were shelves that were used to store the bird cages. The bird cage was the nickname for the M102 nuclear storage and shipping container. The A building once was the most heavily defended building at Caribou Air Force Station. The reason was simple. Plutonium was not only scarce in the early 1950s, but was extremely expensive to manufacture. Continuing on with our tour, the next stop was building 272. This was the A2 building. Building number 272 was constructed in 1955 of reinforced concrete and was similar to building number 260. The structure appeared to have a single story above a basement level, but the above ground level was never a usable space. Its interior could not be accessed, and its apparent windows and door openings were never operable. The basement level entrance consisted of a concrete stairway up to a concrete loading dock with a flat roof, similar to building 260. A single doorway provided access to the 34-foot-long corridor that led to a small room contained within the exterior wall of the building. Beyond this room, the interior was identical to that of building number 260. This building was constructed on the side of a hill, and most of the structure was below ground. All of the vaults were deep below ground with over 20 feet of solid reinforced concrete above them. Building number 272 represented the new and improved model in nuclear capsule storage. The next stop on our tour was a Type 6 tritium reservoir storage igloo. The Type 6 igloos were constructed of reinforced concrete. Tritium, a radioactive isotope, was stored as a gas in reservoir bottles. Tritium was used to boost the yield in nuclear weapons. The Type 6 igloo had a rear vault with shelves to store the reservoir bottles. There was also an outer room used for maintenance and testing. As the bus tour continued to many parts of the station, many of the Caribou Air Force Station veterans and their wives were interviewed by some local media representatives who had come along for the tour. We returned to the Loring Air Force Base NCO Club early in the afternoon. It had been a rewarding and informative morning for everyone who had attended the tour. Later that evening, there were many discussions and stories that were told about their days working at Caribou Air Force Station.